Recording from the mini studio at Colorado State University, you are listening to Let's Talk Trio on podcast. Hello everybody, this is Juan Rivas. I am so glad to be back with the podcast. I know we took a month-long break. There is a project I'm still working on. It is the political post it's been a work in progress, and it's really more to advocate for Trio, and it's again doing heavy research in the background, especially concerning the administration's current efforts to undermine several civil rights bills and legislations that have long existed, but now this current administration is seeking to dismantle those things. Again, this is more of me trying to figure out the research, how it lines up. I'm trying to really stitch together how those narratives work together. I am, through various factors, right, that research does take some time. I'm currently in talks of possibly looking for a producer, someone that will help me with the research and really help me really tighten up this narrative that I feel needs to be reported on. It's something, again, I am working on, and it's definitely a work in progress. It's not ready yet. I don't feel that it's at that level where it needs to be. So for the moment, it's kind of sitting in the background, still working on it. It's going to be multiple episodes, and I will release those episodes all at once. I've been slowly working on trying to really get the recording first, and then start releasing the episodes. Once all of the episodes are ready and I feel like they're in a good spot, I'll release them simultaneously, and the audience can then follow along. I just feel like these conversations are very important. That Trio, I feel, has always been on the defensive and has always had to justify why these programs need to exist. And I think us as a public, as a collective consciousness, right, that we are aware that Trio programs are important, but it seems like the people that make our laws, that people that that fund education, no longer see. It's sad. They see they don't see the need for Trio anymore. That is evident in the Prosper Act and how it reduces funding for Trio and how it seeks to consolidate Trio programs under one roof. And it's unfortunate. It's slowly choking the life out of the Trio programs. And for me, this is important. It's an issue near and dear to my heart, and that's why I'm speaking out against it. And it's unfortunate, right, that we even have to have this conversation. You would think that administration, all previous administrations, have seen the benefit of Trio, and they've allowed them to continue existing because it is a public good. It is a public thing that we can justify to allow students, first-generation low-income students, to transition from high school to college, or even assist those students who are still in college, or even better yet, if you're a non-traditional student seeking another way, for you to come back to school, or for a way for you to go to school in the first place, that there are various Trio programs that do that. And again, it's something that I'm still researching. I want to make sure that the episode I put out there is at a top quality, and that my research, I'll be honest, I want it to be irrefutable. I want it to be something that if a lawmaker heard this, or they heard the episode, it would be very hard for them to vote against Trio. It would be very hard for them to realize that eliminating Trio would be a good. It would be really hard for them to make those actions, and that's why the research that I'm doing is kind of in the background. It's still working on it. It's a work in progress, and I promise it's going to be released soon, and it's going to be, I think, a pretty good episode. So I'll keep you all posted on that. It's still a work in progress. In the meantime, there are various connections that I've made with the Trio Academic Advancement Center and here at Colorado State University, and I've made several connections here at CSU with my colleagues, and it seems like we're going to have a pretty heavy CSU episodes in the coming future. So August to mid-September, you're going to hear a lot from CSU alum, current CSU students that are part of the Trio AAC program, or even the Trio Upward Bound program, Trio Educational Talent Search. These are going to be magnificent stories. Today's story I bring you is José Valdez, who is a colleague here at Colorado State University. He is an undeclared advisor, and his role is helping students kind of do an exploration of majors, right? To ensure that the student is getting into the right major. Jose has a great story to tell. I think that when you listen to his journey and what he has had to go through to get to this point is really telling of what a TRIO student is. And Jose's affiliation with the TRIO Student Support Services Program really speaks to that importance of, it speaks to that ability to adapt, to continue growing, and to really have a mindset that says, I want to succeed. I know that with TRIO programs, students feel that they are often, when they either transitioning from high school or getting into college, or for the first time realizing like I need to go back to college, that a lot of students feel this empty void. They don't know where to turn to. They don't know where to go. And I think Jose's story really highlights that feeling that you get when you feel a little out of place. And we talk a little bit about that. But I want you to enjoy this podcast. I'm so glad to be back. And again, this month-long break, I honestly was ready to come back the week after the 4th of July. I was ready to come back and do more episodes. Unfortunately, I don't think I was wasn't in the right emotional state to continue doing interviews. If you are friends with me on Facebook, you already know why. There are several things going on personally that I don't want to share on the podcast, but just know that that I've been able to process. I've been now getting in a good spot where I feel comfortable again with doing interviews and pushing myself forward. Again, broadcasting has been something that I've been very passionate about. It's something I want to continue doing. And now with a lot of, I don't want to call them barriers. I just want to call them obstacles, things that I was struggling with. It feels like they've been removed. And now moving forward, it's continuing this show really to help promote TRIO. And that still is my mission, and that still is what I want to do. Now, there's going to be twists to the show. I think at the very beginning, I was very ambitious, and I said, I just want to record TRIO stories. I will let the audience know now that that might change, that I might bring in a co-host to, let's talk about education. Let's talk about how things are changing in the educational environment. And it's good to have a co-host, because I'll admit, it's doing a solo show and just being able to interview people, it's great and all, but I feel like there's a more lively conversation when it happens when you have more than two people participating in the conversation. And so the future direction of the show, it's still, we're going to record interviews, we're going to get to know staff and students, and whether it's phone or in person, but a possible co-host in the future to help me make this conversation lively and make sure that it stays on point. And we are currently looking for a producer, someone that will help us kind of do a research on the back end. That way we are not caught up with these deadlines. I'm recommitting back to posting on Wednesdays, so you will have a new episode every single Wednesday. When there are breaks, I can tell you right now that November will be my next time that I actually take a break. That'll be around Thanksgiving, and then Christmas break as well. That'll be another break that I'll take as well. Just because, again, we need to emotionally recharge, and it's just being able to make sure that you are in that right emotional state to continue. And for me, I think Thanksgiving, Christmas, those are going to be times that I'm going to be spending with my family. And I really just want to make sure that I devote time for that, and I'm able to step away from podcasting for just those 2 times. But otherwise, I'm going to, again, find TRIO staff, find TRIO students. So yeah, if you ever want to be featured on the podcast, please give me a Facebook comment or message me via Facebook. I would love to get in touch with you and connect. This episode, right, is only one of many, and I want you to be able to share your story here at Let's Talk TRIO. That way we can hear where you're coming from, what your journey was, because everybody's journey is different. Yes, there are common themes, there are common elements, but I feel like everybody had a different journey to get here. Get to college and be successful. That's the journey, and everybody had it differently. So I hope that you sit back, enjoy this podcast. It was a great interview, and I just wanted to say quickly, Jose, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's been great, and I look forward to continue collaborating with you in the future. I want to welcome José Valdez to the Let's Talk Trio program. José, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk about Trio and your experiences, but like anything, we want to know your origin story. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you came up as a student?
Okay, yeah, no doubt. So I'm originally from Southern California by way of Los Angeles, from immigrant parents. So I guess my educational experience would be, I guess you could say it was a difficult one, to say the least, per se. I only say that because, as an adult now, reflecting back throughout my K through 12 years, particularly during my first K through 6 back in the day, I guess what I was trying to say was during the parent conferences, doing some reflections and talking about what felt true to me during that time. I remember my mother reminding me that I guess now as an adult that I was just kind of curious. One day I told her, "Hey, Mom, like, what would the teacher say to you about me during the parent conferences?" And she's like, "Well, mijo, I can't really remember, but the only thing that really that sticks to me was that they always told me that I was a space cadet, that I had my head in the clouds." So that kind of made me think a lot, because I remember during that time of my life, the only time that school made sense to me was when I was in the playground. Mm-hmm. The only time that I actually felt that I was being productive, or I felt like I actually got or knew what I was doing, was in the playground. Uh-huh. So sports was really important to me at that time, and I feel like that was the only thing that gave me some sort of like purpose and confidence, because during school I was like, yeah, I get it, but it's not really something that I'm like overly passionate about. And then transitioning into junior high, which is now known as middle school, I lost that. I didn't have any more outlets anymore, and the school was super underfunded. And honestly, unfortunately, yeah, all the teachers, now that I think about it, maybe the majority of them were predominantly white. So most of them couldn't understand, who we were. The school was predominantly a Latino, Chicano student population. Obviously, we also had Armenians and Asians of different racial ethnic identities, and obviously there was a lot of tension there. A lot of gang activity, and for me, I was just overwhelmed about everything. And then transition from there. I don't know how I graduated from junior high, because I flunked pretty much my first and second year. Mm-hmm. But I guess what they say is that during years 1 through 8 you can pretty much screw around, and they still will advance you to the next grade. Yeah. The only time they hold you back is from grades 9 through 12. And I was like, oh, okay. So I graduated miraculously from junior high school, went on to high school, and I feel like I had purpose again, because I wanted to play football. Okay. And that gave me purpose, that gave me pride in my school, and then that unfortunately didn't work out because I got injured, and then I just kind of gave up. I was just there, like I didn't really care about school. I just kind of did what I had to do, had no passion in anything. And unfortunately, I think my high school didn't feature anything like Educational Talent Search, didn't feature anything like Upward Bound. And so I said, well, whatever. And that's when I was kind of like getting ready to graduate high school, and I'm like, okay, now what? And then the only people that really kind of pushed college towards me were a couple of relatives on my mother's side. And they went actually up to Chico State, where it's just where I started off. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I could go there, I never really, unfortunately, I never visited college campuses. I didn't know anything about the financial aid process. I was just in the dark, unfortunately.
Yeah, like a lot of first generation students are, where they don't know a lot of this whole college process, where you're supposed to be looking at college as your junior year, right? And
right.
They don't tell you that until you hit after you graduate from high school.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. And yeah, man, I took the SAT, and gosh, got a really low score, and I was like, man, I don't know if this thing is for me. So I tried doing it again. Maybe got slightly a little bit of a bump, but I was like, man. So now that I'm thinking about a PhD program, thinking about the GRE scares the crap out of me. But anyhow, but yeah, so that's when I decided, okay, look, I got accepted. I had applied. I got into Chico State through a sister program of Student Support Services called the Education Opportunity Program, EOP. And they pretty much have a similar purpose. They serve students who are, first gen, low income, mostly students of color. It was a huge culture shock, to say the least, when I first moved from Los Angeles to Chico, California, where I was immersed in dense diversity, where I was one of many, with the community that I resided in, to being one of only few. I remember this like it was yesterday. I remember my first wing meeting and being like maybe the only other person of color in that meeting, and I was just looking around and saying, man, there was a lot of white faces here, and I was like, whoa, where am I? I'm not in LA anymore, and that's when it really hit me, and that's when I was just like looking for other people that looked like me, and that was like all I really cared about at the time. I wanted to just connect with other students that were, similar background, and that in itself, the first year of college was a little difficult. I did okay the first semester. I got like a 2.1 or something like that. That's because I had that structured support that I think a lot of our students could really benefit even now. Where you had like a cluster of classes, you had like a mentor, you had stuff like that, and I was like, cool. But then like once they released me, the spring semester, that's when I really struggled, because I was like, my support group was gone. I didn't. I was part of a cluster where you had a lot of students that looked like you, and I was like maybe one or two students who were, of color, and everybody else was white. And I was really intimidated to share my opinion on any discussion topic, or, unfortunately, all those negative thoughts started creeping up in my head, thinking, oh man, they probably think I'm stupid or this and that. So,
were you feeling kind of like that imposter syndrome of you felt like you were super out of place?
Absolutely, man. I had no, I didn't have the skill set. I didn't know how to write at a college level, And I remember one time, like it was for a philosophy class on, it was an ethics course, and so yeah, we would listen to the professor, and we would just kind of, and then I remember one time he gave me a feedback on a paper, a one-page paper nonetheless, but he was pretty upfront. He was just telling me, yeah, the content is underdeveloped. You need to develop, you should probably think about developing a much more richer vocabulary. And I felt really stupid after that,
I'm sorry to hear that.
No, I don't necessarily take it bad. I just realized that I was very underprepared.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't prepared. Like I didn't prepare myself adequately during high school. I wasn't proactive because I just thought, I just kind of went about just kind of crossed off the boxes, checked off the boxes, I'm sorry. And I was like, yeah, here I am, and I'm just going to go through these four years, graduate, get a job, and, do what everybody else does, right? And then that's why I was just like, man, I was just really swimming upstream though. During those first couple of years there, I was pretty much failing every semester over, and then to the point where I was like my last semester, I pretty much failed everything, all my classes. And so I was pretty much at the doorstep of being academically disqualified, or dismissed as we call it here at Colorado State. And then I said, well, I think I better leave before they tell me to leave, because obviously I don't see any improvement coming forward or developing. So I said, you know what? I think I should probably just remove myself from this situation. And at the time, it was the best decision I felt like I could have made, you know. And then that's when I decided I was considering the military.
Yeah.
But I only did that because I was dating someone at the time, and her brother had become a Marine, and so I was like, okay, maybe I should do that just so I can impress her. I mean,
Okay.
stupid decision, I guess, you know. But as a teenager, you know, I guess what do you know at the time, right? You know,
Right.
you just kind of act on a whim, and so I was like, yeah, I guess I could do that. And let me tell you, for those of you who consider doing the military, my mad respects to you, but do it if you know you are 100% absolutely sure this is what you want to do. You never want to go in there kind of like maybe, because at the end of the day, if you get in, once you get in, you can't get out.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, no, mad respect for our, you know, soldiers. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it shouldn't be something that you should just do because college didn't work out.
Yeah.
All right. And so that's kind of where I was at in my journey, and then I moved back home.
Backing up real quick, Jose,
Mm-hmm.
how many years did you serve as part of the Marines?
Oh, I unfortunately didn't become a Marine. I made it to boot camp for the first week, and then they screened me, and then they said, oh well, you know, your vision is way too what's the word I'm looking for? Your vision was way too impaired on your left eye.
Oh my gosh.
And so I couldn't continue anymore. So they obviously, as soon as they found that in my left eye, and they said, yeah, so I had to be placed into a separation platoon, and that felt like it was only for a few days, but those few days felt like forever.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, finally got, you know, discharged and started working. Started working for a while. Like I said, started helping out my parents. Obviously, my dad didn't mind getting some of that extra green that I was giving him.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in a traditional Latinx household, Chicano household, however you identify, that's how families do it. You know, the kids grow up, they become adults, they live with the parents until they're married and whatnot, and in the meantime, once the son or daughter is old enough to help out, you know, to get a job, and you know, they're expected to contribute. Right. And I think, you know, from my father's standpoint, that was good enough for him. You know, like the education, you know, he knew it was important, but didn't really see the actual benefit from it.
Mm-hmm.
So, because obviously in him, you know, he only understood dollars, because dollars provided survival. You know.
Yeah.
So.
I think that's what a lot of people don't understand when it comes to students with trio backgrounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that we're in the survival mode at that point in time. Whether you're educational talent search, upward bound,
Mm-hmm.
student support services, you're not looking money to be right to say I just want to get money to get more money and all that. It's more for survival.
Right.
How is the next dollar going to help me in the next 2 weeks?
Right.
So yeah, stretching that out.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things. Sometimes we as professionals forget to understand that, you know, our students are not only having to maintain a full course load, but at the same time, you know, sometimes even be like the spokesperson for the family, the interpreter for their family.
Right.
Sometimes in some cases, like in my case, I remember when I would come home from college during my Chico years, my mom was having difficulty with my brother. He was a lot more rebellious growing up as a teenager, you know, because I pretty much adhered to everything my mom, you know, demanded of me, because she, you know, obviously she was very overprotective of me, didn't allow me to go out and hang out and everything like that, and so my brother was on the opposite. I guess he witnessed that, and he's like, no, I'm not going to be like my brother, you know. And so the funny thing is, like, when I would come back home, I was kind of like the mediator, like the family therapist, if you will.
Oh, right.
Yeah, man. And so I think I wouldn't put it past some of our students if they sometimes would have to also be, you know, therapists for their parents, because they come, you know, they leave, and now they go to college, and you know, obviously it comes with a lot of pressure, but at the same time there's this level of prestige that comes with it. You know, we're like, oh look, you know, my son or daughter is going to school at CSU or any other institution for that matter, and so now it's almost kind of like they've been, you know, donned the wise person of the bunch. And sometimes for students, you know, it's kind of like, well, you know, I don't know everything, you know, I'm specializing in this, and then so it's like, then you have this pressure of like, okay, why your parents, if there's something they don't understand, they want you to figure it out for them, and
Right.
and then if you don't know, then sometimes, unfortunately, because our parents may not understand, they might just say, well, aren't you going to school then, or why are you going to school then, or why aren't you,
Right.
and so
There's this expectation that, as you already said,
Mhm.
they expect you to know a whole set of other skills, but you're specializing in college. You're specializing in one thing. I think that's what a lot of Latinx families,
Mhm.
they go through that kind of jarring experience of,
Right.
oh, you're only specializing in this one area. I thought you were specializing in this whole thing. And that can be pretty, I know for me, and this is my personal experience, is when my dad saw me go through college, it was like, oh, so you're studying history. So you know all of history. You know all of Latin American history, European history, all this. I was like, I specialized in U.S. history, Dad. I didn't really specialize in everything that you're talking about. I was like, I would love to. And he's like, well, then, he's like, I don't know why I'm asking you this question. So, and he would move on. But yeah, just kind of reflecting on that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I just think that, our students just definitely have a lot on their plate,
They do.
for sure.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
When we're talking about financial aid for first generation and low income students, it used to be back in the 70s that financial aid would almost take care of almost everything. The students didn't really have to worry. As the years went by and as new administrations took over, we saw less and less in financial aid. And TRIO programs have had to really step up and become kind of more advocates for students. You joined, I'm guessing, the TRIO program at a time where funding started becoming a little bit more limited. Can you talk about that experience and kind of your connection to TRIO?
Absolutely. So I joined Student Support Services, I want to say 2000 and 2004. So Student Support Services, for those who don't know, is the branch of TRIO that, for lack of a better term, supports college students through their, throughout their time in college. I would say, as far as financial aid, they were able to give me, a small grant, things of that sort. But obviously, me not knowing any better at the time, and because of this survival mode, I was taking out loans like it was candy, man.
Yeah.
And I was not even thinking about anything in the long haul about like how this was going to impact me as a professional, which still is impacting me today.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I was able to, get my loans consolidated and get that under control a little bit. But yeah, so if you borrow what you need. Don't borrow more with what you don't need, because at the end of the day, those nice pair of shoes, that car or that sound system, or that nice flat screen TV is gonna come out being a lot more expensive and with interest. So for those of you listening,
Right.
Trust me.
The taco that you buy tomorrow with student loans is going to be a $50 taco down the road.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I hear that.
Yeah, and so I think for me, I guess you could call it a blessing and a curse. Yeah, you have to work. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
You have to work.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, nowadays, your degree is important, but at the end of the day, it's a dime a dozen type of thing. And so now you got to figure out other ways to stand out.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
develop your academic or professional portfolio. And so I feel like for me, at the time when I went back to school and I first started, I was working as a server, at the Mexican restaurant where my parents still work to this day. And that, my goodness, was a big stressful position, but I had it paid the bills, because the tips were good, but at the same time it was difficult to balance that with school, because at the end of the day, when you work for someone in the community, it's their needs first,
right.
and then that's where it kind of got really, really difficult. And unfortunately, after 2005, I didn't work there anymore, which actually was a blessing in disguise, because, and I won't get into as to why I'm no longer working there, but it was kind of like it opened the door to my first position in TRIO. My first position as an undergrad in Trio was through the Educational Talent Search Program as a program assistant.
All right.
Yeah, as a program assistant. And so I pretty much was kind of like a recruiter. So go out locally and, talk to students about what Educational Talent Search does. And then also at the same time visits schools in the area that had been partners with Educational Talent Search, and had, so you kind of like make them do, like, I think if I can remember, I know it was a long time ago, but it was like a kind of like a career readiness workbook that they were having to fill out. Yeah. And then obviously, the students obviously enjoyed, the field trips, up to like Elitch Gardens or the zoo or museum or things of that sort.
The big ticket trips, the ones that rewarded them for participating.
Absolutely. But then that's kind of when I first kind of started discovering, access, higher education, first gen, low income students, getting them excited, getting them, pumped, or, giving them some sort of vision as to why, higher education is important.
Yeah. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I think that through your works, Jose, that you really reflected that higher education is super meaningful to you. Mm-hmm. Did Trio play at all any role in your continued aspirations? Does it continue to influence your work today?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think, the funny thing is I've been kind of doing a lot of reflection lately about, what the next step might look like, because I've been here in my position now for, in October it'll be about 6 years.
Yeah.
So I was just thank you. So I've just kind of been thinking about, what would the next step look like possibly? And so I feel like sometimes I was kind of overthinking about the whole idea of like, I was kind of trying to stay away from the typical narrative of, as a professional of color, I want to implement, or infiltrate higher ed because I want to help for first gen low income students. And that tends to be the typical narrative, and I kind of wanted to shy away from that. But at the end of the day, it was like, why? Mm-hmm. Why am I shying away from that? That's exactly why I got here, because I feel like there were people that, invested in me mm-hmm. when I didn't believe in myself, Mm-hmm. And so I think any opportunity I get to partner with Trio, I definitely want to definitely have and would like to continue taking advantage of that. So most recently, I think, this was when I first started here at CSU, but I was able to kind of give the students from Upward Bound here at CSU just kind of like an introduction about what college life was going to be like. This high school, it's pretty prescriptive. You check off boxes. Your path is pretty linear towards graduation, and then when you come to college, it could look like this. You could go like that. You could go various different directions, but it doesn't mean that you're going the wrong way.
Yeah.
And that's what sometimes I think, I was explaining that, sometimes, incoming freshmen have a difficulty, understanding that it doesn't have to be a linear path anymore.
Right.
And then, we just started talking about, what it meant to create their story. And I just really appreciated the opportunity to connect with them, to connect with that population. Mm-hmm. And then just most recently, an old student that used to go to school here, her name is Melissa Starbuck. She actually is working, I think it's in Rifle or something like that, Fort Morgan, in that northeast Colorado area,
okay.
which is a predominantly rural community, right? Mm-hmm. And she had come down during our transfer orientation while I was busy here, and she was just showing some high school kids around. I think they were probably Talent Search or Upward Bound kids. No, I think, they were Upward Bound kids. And so, they had their Trio work shirts on and everything. And I was like, oh, man, cool. Let me see. She was like, yeah, you want to talk to them? I was like, yeah, I'd love to. Yeah. And so just kind of on the spot, man, I just kind of like gave them a spiel about, if you're thinking about Colorado State, cool, this is what we offer. But if you're not sure about what you're wanting to major in, that's absolutely perfectly fine to come in undeclared, because obviously, I'm a little biased as to why students should consider coming to college undeclared, because who really knows what they want to do at 18? Shoot, I'm 39. I still don't know what I do. Yeah, man. So So I just kind of told him, hey, you know what? If you really want to start thinking about what you want to major in, these are some things you consider. Try to identify what's valuable to you. So what are your values? What do you want to get connected to? As far as extracurricular activities, but understand why you want to get connected to it. Because sometimes I feel like even now, which is kind of funny, and this is kind of a side note, but I think it's still valid. I had a young man that was actually my former president for the Undeclared Leadership Council, and I told him, well, why'd you join Undeclared Leadership? And I think sometimes, and he kind of just opened up, and he was honest enough to say, hey, I just, because it was something to do, or it was, just something to add on my resume. And so like that's kind of where I was trying to emphasize, hey, if you do it, try to understand why you're doing it. Don't just say because it's gonna look good on my resume, and then you're not really sure why you're doing something. So I kind of really try to push that, having to think about that and just think about the classes that are really resonating with them. So I just kind of threw in those seeds and see if any of them, hopefully, took that to heart. And and then I was like, man, this was pretty cool. And I just kind of had to go back to my routine, working with transfer students, because I was trying to get them, register for classes and whatnot. But yeah, I was like, man, this is. And I told her, yeah, I did Upward Bound for a couple of summers as a resident advisor, and I absolutely loved it. And just kind of give them a little bit of background, and just so I can kind of connect with them on that level. And yeah.
So the trio connection still continues, and you feel like there's still a closeness there. The support network that was afforded to you, your position as an undeclared advisor, and now looking ahead, and you're looking forward to that next step. I think the audience is curious. What is next for you? What does come next? What is the next chapter for you?
Well, I've been contemplating the idea of a doctoral program, but I actually have to, put in the work, and that's kind of been the difficult part for me right now. Is just getting motivated to actually stick with the process. I've kind of been putting off the reading for a little bit, but tonight actually I hired a tutor for my GRE prep.
Yeah.
Because I think, standardized tests, give me the heebie-jeebies. But I feel like I learn best when somebody can kind of present the information to me visually.
Yeah.
And so I think that'll hopefully be a good partnership. Seems like from what I was looking at the reviews, she had like 50 people that she served, and all 5 stars. So obviously I was like, man, she seems pretty reputable.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely gonna hopefully get some really good info. I'm looking to probably take the exam somewhere like early mid-October.
Okay.
And then the application would be due on the 1st of December. So we'll see.
Things are coming up pretty quick. And
Yeah.
Summer's already over.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So I think I need to put this pedal to the metal and stop slacking off. Yeah. So I need to finish that book that I've been reading. It's called Say My Name Fool or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's pretty much just talking about. So right now I'm kind of like focusing on, which is a really pertinent topic now, like sports, popular culture, and politics.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of come circle for me, because like I remember, like reflecting back on my life, sports was really a big outlet for me. And it's kind of ironic, that I, like just kind of looking at the literature, sports are used as a tool to help, particularly communities of color, keep them away from, gangs, drug violence, all that type of stuff. But like for those that are fortunate enough to get to like a professional level, they get exploited. So it's kind of ironic, honestly.
Yeah.
You use sports to try to get out of the circumstances that you're in, but then when you're if you're fortunate enough to become a professional, you can get exploited. And then if you try to speak up, speak and articulate maybe thoughts that are injustices that are going on in the country, you're essentially shut down, i.e. Colin Kaepernick.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. That's a very good point.
Mm-hmm.
I know the audience. I am excited for you for the future that what it holds,
Mm-hmm.
and you pursuing a PhD. That's amazing. That's an inspiration, and we're definitely gonna have to do a follow-up interview after you graduate.
Absolutely.
And we're gonna have you back on the podcast
For sure.
So this has been an interview with José Valdez. He is the Colorado State University Undeclared Advisor. José, it was a pleasure having you on the program.
Thank you. I'd love to continue, providing any type of feedback that you would like me to provide you. This was amazing. Trio is a big part of my heart.
Yeah.
Honestly, like if it wasn't for Trio, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. That was very imperative for my success, and they helped me in more ways than I probably could have imagined outside of just academics. So obviously, it was just those relationships that I was able to gain, and also just get connected and work in other capacities within Trio.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you'll consider co-hosting with me at some point for the podcast.
I'm down.
All right, man.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you, Jose.
Thank you.